Welcome back, winos. In today's episode, we're following our HR horror story episode with a different kind of horror. Someone saying something inappropriate to us or asking us an awkward question in the workplace. We're not only going to talk about some of those situations, but we're also going to talk about how you can respond in a professional manner while still setting clear boundaries.
Given that so many of you are interviewing or thinking about a job change, especially in this environment, we thought this was a perfect episode to follow up our horror stories. And even more exciting, we have our behind the scenes master, Brynna, on the show with us today. So we are so excited to have you, Brynna. She is going to share some of her own experiences and then share her thoughts as to how she feels as an employee. Welcome.
Oh my gosh, it's so good to be here from out from behind the scenes. Is this where I make it like really awkward and say weird things about myself?
Yes, please.
Oh, great. I wasn't
I
prepared
mean,
for yes.
the topic is inappropriate and awkward situations. So,
You know it
yes,
is.
please
It
make
is.
it as awkward as possible.
Oh, good. Great. I'm sure that you will invite me back immediately after. Well, hang on, ladies. If we're going to get into all of that, I think we need to talk about the wine before we talk about the wine.
Oh my gosh, it's like
Yes,
she knows or something.
I know. Yes. And wine, WINE at least, does tend to make most situations less awkward. So,
Hmm.
Truth.
All right, so I guess I will start. In that case, I don't drink a ton of wine normally, but of course, working with wine with HR has made me a little bit more interested, I guess you could say. I'm normally a whiskey girl, so leaning into wine has been very interesting. So I have picked up a rosé today by Goose Ridge. This is Goose Ridge Estate Winery in Benton City, Washington. I'm drinking Revelation, which smells amazing, just by the way, upon first pour. It's kind of got a tangy after scent to it. It has floral bouquets with bursting notes of strawberry and watermelon. A reminder that style and strength are more than just this season's fashion. They come from within. Each sip is a revelation.
I love this.
For those who can't see the bottle, obviously, because we're on audio only, I will show it to the ladies here. But it is a woman in a very nice white blazer and suit. But her upper half is a bouquet of gorgeous flowers and jungle leaves, and it's a really neat piece. And on their website, they have intros on the artist and information if you're interested in that as well. So let me take a sip here before I keep talking.
we will put the winery in the show notes for anyone who is interested to learn more.
Mm, that's drier than I thought it was going to be, but I actually really like it. I can definitely taste the strawberry. Definitely taste the strawberry. The watermelon's very quiet. It's not, I was expecting more of a kind of a punchy sweet watermelon, but it's actually very simple. I quite like that. I really like that actually. Well, say goodbye to the bottle. That's really good. Oh my God, that's really good. And it's not expensive for those of you who are on a budget. Trish, you better start talking about your wine before I keep going off about my wine.
I'm really just wishing I was there to try that. So I had something very, very special planned today. I got it from my parents for my birthday, and it's, again, I wish people could see it. It's a very, very sparkly gold bottle. But something that does not happen to me very often, I actually can't get the cork out. It's a deluxe sparkling wine, extra dry, so totally in my palate range. But I mean, I've been twisting and twisting on the thing, and it's not moving. So fortunately, I have some backup of some Josh, and we all know I love my quote unquote boyfriend Josh. So that's all I'm gonna say is I have my boyfriend with me today.
Are you drinking red or white, Josh?
Actually, I'm drinking their Sauvignon Blanc, which is something I don't actually usually drink their Sauvignon Blanc. But it's, it's good. It's Josh.
Yeah. Is it from California? The Sauvignon Blanc, I'm assuming.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
I'm
Okay.
trying to show you the bottle. Yep.
Okay. Yes. All right. All right.
So what about you, Jules?
Well, so I am drinking a new wine that I'm excited about. So it is in this beautiful Mediterranean blue bottle, and it has I'm assuming this is a jellyfish on it. Maybe, or some sort of sea flower. I'm not entirely certain, but it's called Terima Mediterraneo, and it is from España. And it says, Terimo Mediterraneo is not just a wine. It's an homage to authentic Mediterranean aromas and flavors. Made close to the sea, this authentic Mediterranean wine, concealed by this blue bottle, has fruity and pleasant aromas and is very fresh with balancing acidity. Ideal with rice, fish, and seafood. Serve well chilled, preferably by the sea. Oh, how I wish I was. So I'm excited. It does, you can definitely smell the salt water.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. You can smell some citrus, definitely some lemon. I think I'm going to love this. Hold, please. Oh, yes, that is lovely. Mm. Mm. I'm not sure how to describe it though. It's you can definitely taste the salt water. Yeah, I know. Trisha's so mad.
I'm so mad.
You can taste the salt water mixed with like the citrus and maybe some apple, a little bit of honey, definitely some honey. Yeah. No, I really like this. Yeah, say goodbye to this bottle too. And perhaps this episode if we drink the whole bottle on it.
Listen, I'm just a guest. I have limited responsibility.
Except that you have to produce it still.
We don't talk about that part. Technicalities. We don't do that here.
Okay, well, so we got us all started on the wine. So Trish, you know what time it is?
That time.
It's stat time. Why
Smile
don't
since
you?
I'm so jealous. Baba, 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 stat time.
I was gonna say, I think you need like a Blues Clues song, like Mail Time.
Oh.
It's stat time.
I love it.
Get you a little intro.
All right, Trish, hit us with some stats about our topic for today.
All right. We're going to jump around a little bit on these. Starting with women, 42% of women have been asked inappropriate questions during job interviews. And I don't believe that number. I think it's probably double that.
Probably.
Gonna say. One study found that 90% of both male and female employees reported facing awkward or inappropriate questions in interviews. That sounds more like it to me.
Hmm.
And just over half, about 52% of employees have experienced or witnessed inappropriate, unethical, or illegal behavior at work. I thought that was a fun one to throw in there to show you that it doesn't just stop at the interview questions. It can go beyond and well beyond.
Yes, yes.
Oh, yeah. So those were some of the big ones. Obviously, I have lots of other stats I want to share. Um, but I think really to get us started, the best way to do that would be to have our Brynna share her own personal, I'm going to go back to our word horror story.
I mean, it certainly felt that way after, of course, but the whole point is one of the reasons we're talking about this is it's during that gets very confusing. When you're dealing with it in the office, it's a little tougher, right? Hindsight's 2020. So you go home and you think about it and you take a shower and you have dinner and oh shoot, I should have said A or I should have done B. And it's really hard to kind of manage that, especially when you don't have kind of a guide. So I'm going to walk you through kind of one of the the biggest glaring experiences that I had kind of regarding this topic, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit. So, for context, I am not the age that I was then. I was much younger, so much younger gal. But it was still so impactful that I continue to talk and think about it because I think, especially right now, with so many people looking for jobs, losing jobs, trying to figure out the job market, trying to understand how to provide for kids and pets and spouses. I mean, it's rough. So when you really need that job, like I did, it becomes extra difficult. So when I went to this job interview, one of the things that was tough is that I had been unemployed for 3 months. I'd been trying and trying and trying and trying to get interviews and get jobs and get calls, and they just weren't coming in. And it was really hard. I was running out of money. And when I picked up this interview, I was very excited about it. It was for a great company. They had quite an established history. I was really excited to meet them and learn more about them. And the headhunter, the HR gal that was working with me, said something really weird before I went into this interview. And it should have been a massive red flag. You'll hear lots of red flags in the story, but that should have been the one swinging from the rampart screaming, "Don't do it!" She said, "He may say a few weird things, but don't worry about it. He means well." So already from the get-go, this is this is going south, and I'm not saying like vacation to Nashville. I'm saying like into the ocean. So of course, me being
Wait, that was the HR person?
yes. So
The
this
HR
is
person.
the gal that was helping me find jobs. I had enlisted the help of a small agency to do so, and
Okay,
so
okay,
she was a headhunter HR gal, however you kind of want to label that. The terms have changed, right?
gotcha.
So I just kind of left it. I was like, okay, fine. That's, I understand. Thank you for the warning. Not thinking a whole lot of it. I get to this interview. First of all, the interview is at like 7 a.m. So nobody's in the office. Red flag number, Julie's waving a red flag right now and needs at least 12 more for this story. You need a crowd of them. Yeah, there you go. She has a whole bag. I love that you have those just on demand. I really appreciate it. So I get into this office. I can't open the door to the office unless someone lets me in. It's locked, high security, but the rest of the office is dark. There's nobody there. And there's like this person's assistant and someone else who I think might have been IT, just kind of wandering around. And they let me in. They sat me. I waited to go into this interview with the big kahuna, essentially. And so he calls me in. We get started. I'm shaking like a leaf. And he starts asking me the regular questions, what did you like about the company? What are you interested in doing? This is the job position, that these are the things that come with it, blah, 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 blah. What experience do you have? And then he starts kind of veering us elsewhere. So he'd ask a question about, my experience and what I'd been doing for the last few years, why I moved to where I had moved. And then, well, are you a good girl or do you go out on the weekends? Do you have kids? Are you with someone? Are you interested in getting married? Like every single question you are not supposed to ask somebody. It was like he was running down a checklist. And it just, I knew they were wrong. Okay. I knew these questions were not acceptable, but I really needed the job. I really wanted to impress this guy. I really wanted to impress his assistant. I wanted to work there so bad that I answered all of them. And again, I was very young. I was like 18, 19, 20, but it still didn't make it right. And as an adult, my answer to the question would have been, "Thank you for your time. Have a nice afternoon." And I would have gotten up and left. I mean, but at the time when you're in it, it's hard to say no. He asked me questions about like what kind of boys I dated. Would I date them again? Just, I mean, when I tell you it was the most
What?
surreal experience, but this man made money. I mean, and she had told me before I came in, oh, he means well. So, of course, she has already prepped me to dismiss this behavior. So it just, and one of the reasons we had talked about this particular episode again is because when you're in it, how do you look at a man who makes all this money and who you desperately need a job from and say no thank you? So I think if I had been able to sit down with myself, the answer would have been, you say thank you and you get up and leave. I mean, they're really, it just kept going. There was no stopping point. It wasn't like one question and we were done. It was several questions and then that continued and it really set the stage for the job itself. I did get the job, but it absolutely set a standard because that job continued to be uncomfortable, continued to push my boundaries, continued to be a toxic workplace after I accepted the position. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I mean, there were other questions, of course, that I won't discuss that are not really relevant, but it just was a lot. And I'm curious kind of to hear how you two would handle it and kind of how you would advise our listeners on how they would handle something like that.
First of all,
Well,
I gotta pick my job, my jaw up before. Wow.
Yeah.
Can I
yeah,
ask a
the good girl comment is like
That's
just
the one that has always
so
stuck in my brain.
so creepy. So
Mm-hmm.
creepy.
It is.
Like, ew, ew.
Did he, I just have to know, did he ever give you a reason for like how he even pretended to relate it to the job? Because those are the ones that always really creep me out. They're like, well, it's relevant because you know what I mean?
Well, I think the only thing I would say is that as a side note, he said something along the lines of you need to be dedicated to this position and not be drunk or something really random. But it was again, it was very like off-putting and it wasn't phrased in a way that would have justified the question. So it
So
wasn't
nothing can justify the question.
no, but
I'm
I'm
just
saying like there
wondering if
wasn't
he
even an
tried.
attempt. There wasn't even an attempt made. It was just like, well, we just don't want you drunk kind of answer. And I was like, it was just strange. The whole experience was so strange. And um, I would wager to guess based on our stats that I certainly am not the first or last person to have that kind of an experience.
Yep, I would agree. And I think that one of the things you said, Brynna, that is so important, and one of the reasons we wanted to do this episode is because when it happens in the workplace, it is very different than if it were to happen outside of the workplace. Because you always have in the back of your head, I'm supposed to respond professionally.
Right.
I'm supposed to remain professional.
Yep.
And so I can't respond in any of the normal ways that I would. And so I had a client, this was back when I was still practicing law, but I had a client that was a court reporting agency, and they had, most of their court reporters were women. And the women were going to often take depositions and things of that nature. And most of the time it was for male attorneys, not all the time, but often. And there had been sort of a string of incidents where male attorneys had been saying really graphically sexual things to the court reporters. And the court reporters came back to their boss, who was also a man, and said, like, we're not sure how we're supposed to respond in these situations. And so, to give you some context, one of the ones that I remember is the court reporter was, getting some of her equipment together that was on the floor. So she was kneeling down, and one of the male attorneys said to her, "Yeah, that's right where you should be," or something along those lines. Yeah. So
Oh
just
my God.
ridiculous, right? So they report this back to their boss, and he's like, "Oh my God, I don't want you guys thinking you can't respond in those situations." So he called me and we did this like kind of workshop where we gave the court reporters scripts that they could use, and we'll talk more about this. Everybody knows Trisha and I love scripts. But it is exactly because of this reason, because when you are caught in a situation where your normal instinct would be one thing, but you feel that you cannot employ your normal instinct because you are in the workplace, you freeze. And so if you have certain things that you can say to people, then it's different. So, and I remember that the woman that the on your knees comment was made to said to me, if this guy said this to me in a bar, I would have decked him.
Yeah.
But she's like, but I was at work and I couldn't do anything. She's like, I froze. And then, very similar, Brynna, to what you said, she got home and she was like kicking herself because she was like, I should have said this, this.
Hmm.
Well, first of all, I want everybody to hear me loud and clear that that is human nature. It is flight or fright, or wait, flight or
Fight or flight. All of the
tongue
above.
twister. Yeah, I couldn't get that out to save my life. And I have not even had an entire glass of wine. So it is, yes. Oh, good God. Yes. Flight or fight. Or freeze. That's the third one, right? So oftentimes we freeze. And so it's perfectly normal to not be able to think of it in the moment. But we're hoping to help you this episode by giving you some scripts about things that you could say. But before we get into that, Trish, I mean, you said a little bit about what you were thinking as Brynna was talking, but what are your sort of thoughts for our listeners as you were listening to her story?
I like the Decem idea. Am I allowed to say that?
Yes, we can have the fantasy
Yeah, there you
and
go.
then the reality,
Hmm.
you know.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
the reality is I think unfortunately, like I said, those stats are pretty low, the reported stats. I think more of us have experienced it than I would ever even care to believe. And so I think it is important to have conversations about it. And I'm actually shocked to think about the fact that we haven't even done this one before because of how prevalent it is. Um, and whether it's during the interview process or whether you've been at the place for a long time, you still don't know what to say. I mean, I can remember losing a job in my third year of law school, and the reason was I wouldn't sleep with the boss, but the girl that they hired that I had to train, FYI, to take my place would. And when I was given that knowledge, I was told there's nothing you can do about it. I would deny it, but I just wanted you to know because you're a damn good lawyer and we don't want you to give up on yourself.
Wow.
Uh-huh. So I guess the reason I'm sharing, yeah, huge red
Yeah,
flag, right?
wave that red flag, Julie.
Right? Wave
Dang.
it proud. So I guess the reason I'm choosing, I've never shared that publicly before, but the reason I'm sharing it is because I want people to know that it's not just about when you go into a job. I had worked at that place a year and a half. And there were some ooh creepy like ew type of moments, but never in a million years did I expect that. And there are so many things that I wish I would have said. And so I think that that leads us back to exactly what you both have already mentioned, which is we need to have a plan and we need to be able to know that we are defending ourselves, stepping up, but also again, for those of you who are going, but I need the job, like Brenna was saying, I need the job. I can't not answer it, or I can't walk away, or I can't deck him or her, because it can happen both
Right.
ways.
Absolutely.
We need to be able to know what is okay to say, and I think that's really where I want to focus, because I think it's important for people to know you can say no, you can say no, you don't have to answer a question. Or my personal favorite when someone asks me a question that I find highly inappropriate is, can you explain to me, and honestly I've done this before, which is, well, I'm not really sure how to answer that because I'm trying to figure out how to respond in the context of the job. Can you give me a little bit of an understanding on how I can make, because I want to make sure that I'm answering it properly for you. And kind of like throwing it out there to them like, hey, this is your opportunity to fix this. And if you don't, maybe then I get to deck you.
Explain first, punches later.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, Trish, and I think, one of the things that you said is really important too. I actually think that for a lot of people, once you get the job, or you've been in the job for a while, it actually can become even more awkward and uncomfortable
Yes.
because you're like, well, I
Right.
still have to show up to work tomorrow. So what am
Right.
I supposed to do then? Like, so I'm just going to suck it up. I'm not going to say anything, and I'm just going to suffer through it till I can find a new job.
Yeah.
But that,
Like what Brynna said, it set the
right.
tone for the rest of her job.
Hmm.
Right, right, exactly. And I think that the important thing to think about there, and we're gonna get into this next, but some of the things that you can say, and some of the boundaries that you can set, it is important to do those things because if it has happened to you, it has likely happened to other people.
Yep.
And so I'll share one more thing. I can't be very detailed about this, but I recently I was retained to do an investigation, a sexual harassment investigation. And, when it first came to light, we thought that there was only one victim, so to speak. But it turned out that there were multiple. Again, not surprising because women in particular, but not just women, but women in particular have been conditioned to just not say anything. And so, as we dug and as I investigated further, I figured out that this particular male employee had a pattern, and sort of went, from one woman to the next until they would finally set a boundary. And then he just, cut and run and move to the next person. So sometimes that can make it a little bit easier, I think. And Brynna, I'd be curious what you think about this now. And I totally get, 18, 19 years old, I wouldn't know what the hell to do.
Yeah.
So, but sometimes I think if we think about that, like, well, I'm not doing this just for me because I can take a lot, but I'm doing this for all the people who it's already been done to, who for whatever reason couldn't speak up, and or the people who are going to come after me, who may not feel that they can speak up. So I don't know, what are your thoughts on
Yeah, I think so. Lots of thoughts about that, for one. Organized thoughts about that.
that?
The I think the big thing that jumps out to me in this particular example is if I had had the wherewithal and the strength as a young woman to say, this question's not applicable to the job at this time. Can you explain it to me? Kind of like Trish mentioned. Or if that doesn't go anywhere, to say, I'm so sorry. I'm very uncomfortable with the questions being asked in this interview. Thank you for your time. And you get up and leave. Okay. I had the power to leave. Um, Not only does that trickle down to other applicants, right? Who, we have tools like Glassdoor and we have
Hmm.
tools so far beyond what I had then, right? We have social media where we can say, hey, you need to be aware of this because this is how I was treated and it's super not acceptable. So if you have this interview with this company, be aware. Or, we have LinkedIn now. People talk about their experiences all the time on LinkedIn. So if I had, say, built a post and put it on LinkedIn saying, this is the experience I had with, say, not say the company name. I don't even have to say the company
Sure.
name,
Right.
saying this is the experience I had, this is what I did, and this is why. There could be a 17-year-old out there looking for a job who hasn't quite made it into the corporate world yet, who looks at that and says, that's dangerous. That's scary. I need to be prepared for that just in case. And so she walks into an interview with that in her back pocket, or a young man walks into the interview with that in his back pocket, saying, hey, I know this scenario because I read about it. Super not comfortable. Thank you so much. And off he goes. And that is, to me, a down the hill effect where even if I haven't talked to those individuals myself, it's still out on the internet. It's still visible. Reddit, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, whatever you use, right? There's tools for that now. But also the recruiter. That goes back to the recruiter because then I sit down and say, hey, this is what you said to me. These are the things that I was asked. And they were really inappropriate. And I'm not sure I understand why you prepped me that way. Can you
That
talk to
is
me about that?
That's exactly where I wanted to go with you, Brynna. Like, what
Yeah.
in the world was her problem? How could anyone that calls themselves a qualified headhunter or recruiter send you off knowing full well that others have had that experience and saying, Oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it if you get uncomfortable. This is just fine. Like,
Well, Trisha, to be fair, not to give away Brynna's age,
Go ahead, it's okay. It's okay.
but this was back in the day when women thought they had to suck it up and couldn't say
Oh
anything.
yeah.
yeah,
So
I guess
that
you're right.
recruiter probably thought the same thing and thought if you are going to get a job, you're going to have to learn to deal with this sort of crap. It wasn't right then. It's certainly not right now, but I don't think we can bash on her. You did say it was a female recruiter,
Yes, it was a
right?
female.
Okay.
Yes.
Like, I don't think we can bash on her just because it kind of was, unfortunately, the status quo back then.
Okay, no, I'm going to argue with you on this because if you had my mom as a recruiter or something like that, or your mom, like my mom would have told you that never, ever would my mom send you into a situation like that unprepared. Like, I don't care when it was, she would never have thought that that was acceptable. I realized that it was acceptable in the workplace, but she would have prepared you for it and told you this is how you respond, this is what you do, and not normalized it.
Yeah, but that's your mom. That was
Your
not the
mom's cool.
norm.
Exceptional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
All
was
right. All right.
not the
She is
norm
pretty
back
exceptional.
then. Yeah.
Well, I have
And
to, I mean, I've thought about this a couple times, right? From your same perspective, Trisha, of like how could she have walked another young woman into this scenario and be okay with it? And I've chewed over it and chewed over. I mean, this is one of those things that's really been in my brain for years. Because I never want someone else to experience that. And I don't want to go through it again, right? I own my own business now and I work with Monarch and I'm very comfortable and much happier. But at the same time, if something really goes south and I have to walk back into a business, I know what to do now, but I have to wonder if she was in the exact same scenario I'm talking about, where she desperately needed the business. She desperately needed the job. And that's where it rolls downhill, is where we keep saying, just one, it's okay. Just one, it's okay. Just one,
All
it's
right.
okay. And then it balloons.
All right.
So,
I'll give in to you both.
I mean, I don't know that, right? That's me just thinking. I'm just making things up. But at the same time, I think that is honestly where the core of this issue is that we don't look at it and say just one is never acceptable. There should never be just one to begin with.
The trickle down.
Right. So I think
yeah.
it becomes a much bigger problem, right? So
Well, and you know what? I heard something really interesting the other day, and this really jumped out at me. So we tell kids all the time, if an adult tells you or asks you to do something that you're not comfortable with, you need to go tell another adult, right? So we tell kids to tattle. And I'm not using tattle in a derogatory way because that's what they should be doing. But somewhere along the way, usually junior high and high school, all of a sudden it's snitches get
Mhm.
stitches, right? And then that sticks around until we're in the workplace and we're adults. And there still is this pressure not to rat out people who are doing the wrong thing, but there is still this intense pressure, and that is what we are up against, but also what we have the power to change if we start not allowing it. And wow, those were some double negatives in there, and I apologize, but still not even through a glass of wine can't talk fluently today. So Trisha,
Well,
please
I
take
think that
over.
you make a really good point though, because there is something that we all are concerned about, and that is being labeled that girl, that woman, the one who causes the problems. Oh, she did this, she did that. So it's a matter of having these conversations and being able to stand up for ourselves and not also at the same time be labeled that woman or that girl or that problem person. And I think that's what a lot of our listeners are probably thinking in their head is how do you do this without getting that label on you? And I don't know. I mean, there's part of me who's so angry who says, forget it. Who cares about the label? But then there's the other part of me who's realistic and says, but you need a job. and you need the, sometimes, we always joke about how the Cleveland legal community is very, very small, right? And so as big of a city as Cleveland is, it's a very small legal community. And other towns are quite similar. So you do have a fear, whether you're in law or whether you're in sales or whether you're in whatever industry, you do get that fear of being labeled as a quote unquote problem when all you're trying to do is protect yourself and get the respect and dignity that you deserve. So everybody out there, please recognize, we recognize that that issue is there as well, which again is why we're talking about this.
Yeah. So I think let's get into some of the things that you could say. And then we can ask Brynna how she would feel since she's bringing our employees perspective of how she would feel perhaps saying some of those. And this is going to be different for everybody because everybody has a different comfort level with confrontation, what might feel like confrontation, even if it doesn't necessarily sound like confrontation, or how to handle these sorts of situations. So, Trisha already gave everybody a great one. So, Trisha, since you said it best the first time, I'm going to ask you to repeat it.
Sure. So one of my favorites is trying to figure out how it's relevant to the role. It's a really, really easy way to kind of get the interviewer to understand that the question that they asked you may be slightly or even highly inappropriate. So saying to them something like, I don't really know how to answer that. Can you help me understand how that's relevant to the role so that I can really give you the best answer? Because I really like this. You could even be like a little suck up at this point and be like, I really think this sounds like a fantastic job or a fantastic opportunity. And so if you can explain how that's relevant, then it'll allow me to give you a better answer. Because I could answer 10 different things right now, but I just really want to make sure I hone in on the right thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think that is a wonderful way to keep to it does a couple of things. One, it attempts to keep the
Yeah.
interview on track. Number two, hopefully, if the interviewer has any emotional intelligence whatsoever, it may make them think, yeah, Trisha's mouthing probably not, which is true. I know it's a stretch, but if they have any emotional intelligence whatsoever, perhaps it will get them to stop and pause and say, move on to another question. So, there's those couple of things. Um, I'm going to add one more to that and then we'll get Brynna's opinion. But I think another thing that you can do that is super easy, if you just need time to think of how you really want to respond, because sometimes we just need a moment, is you could say, could you repeat that? Again, maybe, just maybe they weren't thinking when they
Yeah.
said it. And then if they repeat it again, you know it was intentional. So there's that. That gives you information, and information is important. Or you could start with, I think I misheard you. Would you mind repeating that? And again, see if it signals anything in their brain that perhaps they strayed into dark territory. But maybe it'll buy you some time so you can remember Trisha's response about, oh, could I'm having trouble understanding how this relates to the job position. So, Brynna, what are your thoughts on those couple of strategies? Would either 18-year-old you have been comfortable doing any of those, or would your current self be
My
comfortable
current self
doing
would
any
probably
of
just
those?
get up and go, "Oh no, thank you," and walk out the door. But
Right,
I
right.
think so. Actually, follow-up question for you in regards to that. So at 18, 19, 20, like that bracket of 4 or 5 years, right? Um, I
Hmm.
think my follow-up question would have been, in my poor little anxious state, well, what if he says something like, so if I say, can you explain that? Right? If he says something kind of like I mentioned earlier, where he says, well, we just don't want, people drunk on the job. We want people dedicated to this position. I would not have had an answer for that. At this point, I would have been like, well, I don't drink on the job. So if that's the answer you're looking for, that's the answer I'm giving. But I I would have probably frozen worse. So I'm curious kind of what your solution would be to, someone who's not used to being ready to deal with that if they answer in that way.
Yeah, so I think, and again, it's hard to even remember my 18-year-old self. So,
Been even longer
but
for
if
us,
I
Brynna.
could tell, right? Yeah,
I
yeah,
wasn't gonna call you
significantly
out. I mean,
longer. Let's
Yes,
just put it that way.
yes.
Yeah. So, but I think I would tell an 18, 19-year-old, number one, you could play it off as a joke and be like, well, considering I'm not even old enough to drink, I don't think that's a problem we have to worry about. So like play it off as a joke and
yeah,
hopefully move on, or else nowadays, yeah, I would probably say something like, well, as long I can promise you that I'm going to show up ready to work every day, and that's all you really need
yeah.
to
I
be
think
concerned
I
about.
think the I keep coming back to it just because it's so prevalent. But so many people are trying so hard to find jobs right now, and they're running out of savings. They're running out of payments. They don't have enough to pay the mortgage or the
Hmm.
rent or the grocery bill or the diaper bill or whatever it is. And so I do see people accepting these questions just again, one more, it's fine. One more, it's fine. One more, it's fine. And I think if I was going to look my 18-year-old self or even my own self 5 years ago in the eye and say this is never acceptable, your ability to be comfortable is not worth the rent. Like you don't need to accept toxic behavior to survive because you won't if you accept it. I mean, you can't wake up every morning being afraid to go to work. You just can't. It really destroys your ability
Hmm.
to not only do good work, but to exist as a whole and safe person. Um, and like I said earlier, it really set the tone for that job. And I was nervous walking into work every single morning. Is he going to ask me something else weird? Is someone else going to ask me something else weird? Is he going to ask me to do something I'm uncomfortable with? Am I going to have to go into his office alone? I mean, it was very awkward every day, even though I loved a lot of the people I worked with. So yeah, I think those would be really helpful to me, even as 40, 50, 60-year-old adult. I think those are helpful, right? Is this situation, especially right now, can
Hmm.
happen at any time. And there has to be a boundary or we continue to perpetuate the cycle of just one more, which is just not healthy.
And I love every bit of what you just said, but I do want to tell people, listen, we understand if you are not in the position
Hmm.
to be able to do what we are saying.
For
If you
sure.
are not in the position and you absolutely have no choice, you have to accept that position. You have to put yourself there. Please know that we understand. I think we've all been in that position at some
Definitely.
point in our lives. But the thing is, what can you do to protect yourself when you're there, and how quickly can you get yourself out of it?
Hmm.
So, like, that's one thing that we want to talk to you guys about as well is look, if this is what you have to do, if this is the only thing that's there for you at the moment, we want you to be able to protect yourself. We don't want you to have to endure anything because Brynna is right. This is nothing. I've had jobs where every morning when I went in, I was just, what are they going to do today? What are they going to say today? And it was horrifying.
Hmm.
So we get it. We have been there. But we're trying to give you the tools to be able to get through it safely, and then get the heck out of there. I'm gonna
Yeah.
Yeah, and both of you have said it very eloquently. But again, just to hammer home the point, we want everybody to know you got to do what you need to do to survive, and there's no guilt in that. There's no shame in that. If you've got to get a paycheck, you got to give a paycheck. But in that situation, if we can help you reframe it as not being like
Mm-hmm.
the dream job or the be all end all. It
Yep.
is a stepping stone. It is, maybe it is there to, if you're looking for the silver lining, I'm not saying anybody needs to be taught a lesson, but you can look at it as it's like building your power and your strength to not have to deal with these situations in the future. And maybe it lights a spark inside of you that someday you're going to own your own company so you can make sure that you hire people who never have to go through this, and you're going to create an environment where this does not exist, and maybe that's how you reclaim what happened to you when you had to take this job because you had
Mhm.
no other choice. um so I think that, we've all said enough on that, but we do understand there are a few other things that you could do. So we want to talk through some of those. I think you could also, and again, all of these are suggestions because a lot of it depends on what your comfort level is. Some of these get a little bit more confrontational. Some of these stay on um, the lighter side, the less confrontational side. But, if somebody asked you a question such as, well, what did you make at your last job? Which isn't the most inappropriate or awkward. It's certainly not as bad as, are you a good
Oh,
girl? you know, but it's still awkward because number one, we've talked about this before, but they should be paying you what they value the position as, not based on what you were paid at your last job. So you could always say, well, you know what? Let me ask you, what do you think the job is worth? And just deflect. So deflection
deflection
is
and
great.
redirection.
Answer a question with a question. Yes, yes, yes. Deflection and redirection. Answer questions with another question. Or you could say something along the lines of, if they ask you, like, oh, do you plan to start a family soon? Which, by the way, they're not allowed to ask you. But let's say that they do anyway. You could say, I'd really like to focus on the job and its requirements. So could we, I'd be interested to hear more about that. Could you elaborate on X, Y, or Z? Yeah. So again, humor works for a lot of people, so it's okay. Yeah, you could say, like, I can't keep a plant alive, it's going to be a while before any of that other stuff comes into play. Which again, you shouldn't have to say because they shouldn't be asking the question in the first place, but we all know that a lot of this stuff happens. So my last tip, and then I'll open it up to Brynna and Trish for other potential scripts. But if you freeze, they ask you weird questions like that. When are you starting a family? Are you a good girl? What do you do in your free time? But it, starts creeping into weird territory. You can always then just, again, you're using that as information. They are asking weird questions that are making me uncomfortable. So then when they say to you, do you have any questions? You can start asking, well, what's the culture like here? And then if you want to start getting snarky, like, what's your turnover rate? How many employees have you had leave in the last 6 months? Like, just, and you can phrase them all as questions that you are a very diligent, dedicated candidate who is looking for information about the company that they are about to set foot in. And you can just start, rattling off questions like that and see how they respond. Again, it's all information. So even if you end up having to take the job, you know what you're
Julie, I
getting
think
into.
you make a really good point, and that is we forget a lot of times that we're interviewing them as well.
Yeah.
Uh, Right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Amen.
yeah,
Chiz,
because
chiz.
I think
Hmm.
that a lot of people forget that. They go in and they're all, look, here, I'm gonna give you guys one of my favorite things, which is take back your power. And how do you take back your power?
Yes.
You realize you are interviewing them too. So if someone's trying to bully you, or even if they're not, you have to remember that this is an opportunity for you to decide whether you want to work for them. So have your list of questions. The ones that Julie just asked, I think are phenomenal because it really does like if I asked you in one word to describe your culture, what would it be? If I asked your employees to describe your culture, what would they say? What is your turnover like? What is your, I mean, really remember that you are as much interviewing them as they are you. And I think that I don't know, it takes away that fear. And like I said, it really does give you your power back. And so many of us forget that. I know I did for, good Lord, the first probably 60, 70% of my career.
Well, we become scared of it, right? For some reason, we have become scared to ask these questions that we are within our right to ask. So it again, that 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old that I was, those are questions I totally could have asked. Like, yes, I spent 3 to 4 months unemployed. Yes, it was really scary. But, if I had said something to the effect of, how many folks have you lost in the last 6 months? I'd love to know how you handle that turnover, what that looks like for you. Or how do you celebrate your employees? That was a big one I wish I'd asked. How do
Oh,
you
that's
celebrate your
such a good
employees?
one.
Mm,
Because let's be frank,
Good
I
one.
like
most
that.
of us who can eat
Hmm.
it enjoy pizza, and that's wonderful. But the pizza parties, come on. I'm not 5. Please, it's not kindergarten. It's not Halloween, and we're not all wearing cute little paper mache hats. I mean, it's the pizza parties, unfortunately, are not as amazing as I think some folks like to think they are. But I would love to know, do you arrange a Christmas party? What does that look like? What do you get excited about when you do that? Who arranges it? And I don't think we ask that question enough either. How do you celebrate your employees? How do you recognize your employees? And we've talked about it on this podcast.
I love
Um, so I think those are wonderful things, and I think we have to Trisha's point, take back that power, because I think especially as people have lost jobs or desperate for jobs or desperate for money to pay bills, we get so desperate that we get frightened of protecting ourselves, which I think
Hmm.
really is kind of the end result of this whole conversation, is protect yourself in a way that makes sense, you know?
Brenna, I'm gonna jump back in
Yeah,
here because
go.
I know I'm talking a lot, but this is obviously something I'm passionate
Yeah.
about. I don't even think I realized how passionate until we all started talking. Um, with with a lot of I'm trying to think of a way to say this somewhat delicately. With some of the choices that people are making and really looking to hurt or maybe not allow others of particular faiths or particular ethnic backgrounds or something like that. If someone asks you like, are you okay celebrating Christmas or what do you think about this? Just because you mentioned specifically Christmas, I think that one of the articles that I was reading beforehand mentioned something like, oh, I love to celebrate holidays. And I think that that is such an amazing answer because it's nobody's business. First of all, we talk about the Civil Rights Act. We talk about the fact that you're not the employers are not supposed to discriminate against you based on your religion or your religious practices, but there are those that are um, maybe trying to skirt the edges of what they're allowed to do. And I think, again, going to what we've already said, like trying to change it to a joke or trying to make light of it, saying something like, "Oh, I love to celebrate holidays. I'm all about celebrating
Mm-hmm.
any holiday," is a great way to do it and protect yourself. And I'm sorry, nobody should have to protect themselves from their beliefs. I applaud you all for whatever your beliefs are, but you do have to protect yourself from some awful people these days. And so humor and deflection, again, unfortunately, I'm sorry. I don't want anybody to have to do that, but I think that is another great point.
Yeah, and you know what? That brings me to we should probably shift into okay, so now you've got the job or you've been in the job for a while and now this sort of crap is happening. So what do you do? Because sometimes that can be really, as we mentioned, even more awkward because you still got to show up to work the next day and you still have to work with this teammate or this colleague or God forbid the boss. who is saying these terrible, awful things. So it's going to be variations of the things we've already talked about, but I think again, couple things I want to say before I forget them. Two things. And we'll see if I can remember number two by the time I get through number one. So, uh, number one, you can deflect with humor. So if a coworker says something, you can say, "Oh, I know I must not have heard you right." Like you can be a little bit more jovial because hopefully you guys kind of have that banter and you can be like, "Oh, you did not just say that." Something like that to again let them know that they are out of line. As we've talked about before, there are a ton of clueless individuals out there who really don't know. So, first, when somebody first says something, the first time they say something completely inappropriate, I urge you to pretend or take the stance that they really just don't know better. So, let's come from a place of that. They may prove that not to be true pretty quickly, but if you come from a place of from there, you can say something like, "Oh, I know you did not just say that," or "Oh, come on. Did you really just go there?" You can say that sort of stuff. The other big, I think this one's even more important. Trisha and I do training on this, but bystander training. So if you are not the minority, or the historically underprivileged person, then you have even more power than you think to set the tone. What do I mean by that? If I, as a very privileged white woman, hear somebody make a comment that is out of line, and I say to them, "Hey, you know what? That's not cool," in front of other
Mhm.
people, if I call it out right then and there, and I don't leave it to whoever that comment was directed to have the courage to do so, then that makes it easier for another person to step up and say, "Yeah, you know what? That's not cool." That's the bystander effect. And those of us who have privilege need to use it in those situations to make sure that others are not being put in an uncomfortable situation. And so we need to, again, take back our power. We have the power to do that. And then let me tell you, the person who first says that, that is amazing. But they need one more person to come forward and do it too, to come up after that and say, "Yeah, you know what? That's not cool." I guarantee you, whoever said that is never going to say that again. Not in the workplace, because they have just been told by two of their colleagues that's not cool. So, again, going back to my earlier point, we have to start tattling on people. And maybe tattling is not the right word. We need to start calling people out on this kind of crap that makes everybody feel uncomfortable, and we have to stop excusing it as, "Oh, well, it's just so and so," or "They didn't mean anything by that," or all of the crap we've all heard for years and years and years. We need to start calling it out. So either be the person who calls it out first, or be the person who calls it out second and says, "Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right. Not
agreed.
okay."
Agreed. I think that when we have people that start stepping up and taking control of the culture and saying that we're not going to accept this. And you don't have to be a jerk about it. It's just like, hey, wait a minute.
Nope.
That's not the culture that we said we want. Hey, here's our values. This is what we say we want. That doesn't really align with what we're looking to do. I think that it gives more people power to then go, "Oh, yeah, that isn't the culture." And really falling back on the values, the culture, the what do we want to see at work? I think that a lot of people forget that it just becomes words for so many people. And so for people to stand up and say, no, we're not doing this, right?
Yeah, and it really can be something as simple as, hey, you know what?
Yeah,
That's not cool. Like, we want everyone to be comfortable here. So I don't
yeah,
appreciate that comment. Like it could be something as simple as that. To your point, Trisha, you do not have to get in anybody's face. You don't have to make a big deal out of it. You don't have to, like, you know, make things awkward.
right.
It's just, hey, you know what? I'm not cool with that. And I don't think a lot of people
Yeah,
would be. So, you know what? Maybe just don't say anything like
yeah.
that again
And how many
here.
times have we actually said in some of our other podcasts about completely different things, like supporting someone, like you've already said, who has made a statement that is protecting somebody else.
One of the things I was actually going to mention, as Julie has talked about the bystander effect, is that I think this goes back to kind of our see something, say something mentality, right? So even if
Mhm.
that person does not come up next to you and be like, yeah, this really isn't cool and I'm not into it either, they can still very quietly turn around to somebody else in their cubicle or their office or on the bus, that maybe works with you or works in tandem with you, maybe in another department, and say, hey, um, Brynna said that she was not cool with this, and I'm really not either. How do you feel about it? And then again, that goes back to our trickle down effect, where it's that conversation that continues to happen. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. And I think this is another reason why I said, how do we celebrate our employees? Because if you celebrate your employees and they're comfortable enough to talk to each other in that way, this can make a toxic workplace maybe not doable, but manageable, where you feel like you have some support among your fellow employees and you have people to talk to. I mean, and that's so important. If you have managers you can talk to, if you have fellow employees you can talk to, I mean, that bystander effect goes so far if you're able to use your privilege and say, this is the boundary and I'm setting it. It's not a hard boundary, it's not a mean boundary. It's just a boundary. This is where we're at, and that's just where I live, and that's okay. So I think, again, to Julie's point, you don't have to be mean or anything about it, but just being willing to kind of put your hand on the table and say, no, thank you, is perfectly acceptable.
You're making me like so happy because I'm thinking of some of our past episodes too, where we have said to people, like, you need to step up. You need to let people know that they are safe, and you need to let them know that what they're going through, you either understand or that you are not going to accept yourself either. And I think that it is incredibly important no matter what we're talking about. We're talking about toxic workplace culture, whether it comes from inappropriate emails or inappropriate questions that are asked through the interview process, or whether your boss just makes an offhanded comment to you, like you just said, knowing that you are supported by your coworkers, or knowing that this is not the way it's supposed to be. I think that we just really need to encourage people to remind their leaders and remind each other of what we have stated as our mission, as our vision, as our culture expectations. And it's really easy to do when you point to that versus trying to say, you did this to me, right? Because when you say you did this to me or you did this, and again, it is all valid to say that. I want to say, everybody hear me. It is absolutely valid, but it's scary. And to be able to say, well, this doesn't align with the values as I understand them, or this doesn't align with the culture. And I think that more people can get on board with that because it quote unquote feels safe. I'm doing the quotes a lot tonight, but I I want people to feel safe and know that they can support those that are experiencing or like you have both said, who are not in a place of power. And I think that that is a really huge point. If you are not, can I say this? If you are not white, if you are not Christian, if you are not male, and by the way, I love white Christian males, okay? I'm married to one, or at least a white male. Um but um it's scary. Right? It's scary. You don't feel as safe. And for those of you who are white Christian males who listen to our podcast, please understand, I'm not calling you out. I'm not saying that you are bad people. I'm just saying that it's a lot easier to stand up for yourself when you are of what is considered the norm. And so I'm begging you with my heart. I'm not condemning you. I'm begging you to understand what it's like to not be you and be in a situation. For you, it's very easy to stand up for yourself. For you, it's very easy to challenge the status quo. So I'm actually going to challenge you to stand up for those of us who may not be in the position that you are in, and demand that your companies abide by these principles that they say they believe in.
Well, and I think that that's a good point, Trish, not just for, white males or white Christian males, but also for those of us who have quote unquote made it to a place where we're
Right,
more secure,
right.
you know. Um, we need to, if somebody who isn't in that secure of a place comes to us and says, like, if Brynna took the, let's use her example, she takes the job, she comes in, um, and she ends up working for me or near me, and I am in a position of power at the company because I've been there and I've paid my dues in whatever way I had to pay my dues,
We're not going to get into that.
And she comes, yeah, no, we're not going to get into that. And she comes to me and says, "Hey, this just happened to me." And I am in a place where I could potentially do something about that. I could call it out,
Call it
call
out.
it out. You know, I mean, I remember being a young female going into the private
Mhm.
practice of law where a lot of this kind of stuff happened, and going to a female attorney who basically flat out told me, "You just need to suck it up." And like, that's not okay.
That's
I
bull.
and again, I'm not I know, but I'm not necessarily faulting that person because they they came through it at an even worse time than I
Amen.
did.
Amen.
Like where you really, yeah, like where they really weren't allowed to buck the system. But I nowadays would have, if I was still at that firm, I would have the social collateral to call that out,
Yeah.
you know and I will say I'm proud of myself. I did do that in my last couple of years where I would see it, and I worked for a great firm and they were all great people. But you know what, sometimes people don't realize what's
Sure.
happening on sort of a broader scale. And so it was like, okay, if I have the opportunity to call out certain behaviors that people may not
Well,
be
especially if
conscious
you've
of,
made it,
and
right?
I
You've made it. You don't
right.
realize
I
that
made it.
the
I can
exactly.
do it. Right. 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 So I can do it, whereas somebody who's 5 years behind
Right.
me probably can't. So like, again, we've gone a little off track from where we started, but that's
How we
okay. That's
do.
how these podcast episodes go. So we've given some scripts for people who are in it in the moment, but our other big message is for those of you who are know who have the power and are more confident in that power because you've been through it, you've paid your dues, you're at that place. If somebody comes to you and says, "Oh, this was terrible, this felt so awkward, I didn't like how this made me feel," if you can call it out and not put it on that person who desperately needs the job, or who is trying to make their name in this particular industry, then do it. That's how we pay it back. That's one way, one small way we can pay it back, pay it forward, whatever you want to say, for the struggles that we had to go through. There's that whole mentality like, well, I had to go through it, so everybody else does too. I think that's
Agreed.
crap. Like, if we can change it and make people not have to go through the crap that we all went through, for the love of God,
Agreed.
please do it.
I want to give Brynna the final word on all of this, but I do want to say one more thing before we give her the final word. And that is one of my favorite things for all of you out there is if it's an email or if it's a conversation or if it's something like that where and this works for anything, whether it's inappropriate behavior, whether it's someone who is trying to gaslight you, whether it's someone who's just being a total poop hole. Um, one of my favorite things to do, I know I can't, I know. My mama listens. I'm not swearing on this thing. Are you kidding me? So one of the things that I love to do is create two drafts. And I've encouraged this with those that I work with professionally and personally. But I love the idea of giving the real and getting it out and writing it and then the one that I'm going to send them. Because sometimes, I mean, and for those of us women who have been through issues and you've heard of like that whole thing where you write something down and you burn it and you send it into the universe. You know what I'm talking about. But like there are the idea that you can create the draft that you really want to send, and then there's the draft that you're going to send. Sometimes just that process of getting it out, talking about it. I had a friend who had a disgusting boss who, after finding out about some medical issues, really started treating her differently. And when he approached her about how all of a sudden she started talking to him in a different tone, I worked with her on how to respond. And I swear to you, we had 8 different versions before I let her respond to him. Sometimes just writing out that version of what you want to send versus what you actually send allows you to work through those emotions, allows you to get rid of some of that venom, some of that heat. But then the final thing that you send actually is something that is more workplace appropriate. So don't be afraid to do that. Now, my caution to you is don't accidentally send the initial version. Make sure that you are sending the revision because that could ultimately be really, really bad.
Yeah. So on that note, send the draft that you want to send to a
Yes.
friend. So put their name in the
Yes.
email. Or better yet, create a Word
That's
doc
what I do.
that you copy and paste and so that you don't even come close to
We did
doing
it in notes.
that.
That's where she and I did it. I had her create the original response in our notes, and then I was like, "Nope, rewrite it. Nope, rewrite it. Think about this. Think about that." And ultimately, like I said, it was many, many versions later where she got to send the correct response. But that's okay because
Yeah.
we all are entitled to
Yep.
our feelings. So, Brenna,
Yep.
we
Yes.
have to end this with you. After everything that's been said, Julie and I kind of took over towards the end.
Well, it's your
Um,
podcast.
no, it's really our podcast because without you, there would be nothing because you make us sound good. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh,
Cheers
Cheers to
to
gosh,
Brynna.
Brenna.
guys, thank you.
Um, after everything that we've said, what do you think? Will you summarize? Will you tell everyone what you think about what we've said? What you would do now? Um, uh, how would you approach it, or how would you suggest people approach it at the young age that you were? Because obviously we have people of all ages listening. Um, Take us home.
I think so. One of the big things I want to say before I answer this is there is no right or wrong answer. I think, we've given a lot of really great tips and a lot of things that we've tried to help coach you through, and a lot of ideas and just good stuff that you can kind of take home in a basket and unwrap at your whim. But I think it's okay if you still get in there and you freeze and you don't remember everything. Please don't kick yourselves if you can't. I mean, that's what I would have done, is get all this good information and then screwed it up and been like, God, I'm such an idiot because I'm really
Me
hard on
too.
myself. So don't do that. Don't do that. But I also think that all of the stuff we've talked about, all of the things we've explained, all the stories we've told, kind of comes down to one really important glowing core issue, which is do what you need to do to survive, but recognize you don't always have to. Recognize that there are limits to how people can treat you. Recognize that there are limits to how people can treat your fellow employees. If you see something, say something. And you're going to struggle, and it's going to feel weird, and it's going to be scary. And the first couple times you do something like this, you may kick yourself and say, "Oh, I should have remembered, I could have written out in 6 drafts and I should have done that." Or the bystander effect is so important and I should have thought about that when I said X. Don't do that, because this is a learning experience. This is a learning process. Everybody's going to have to do this differently. I think if I had been given these tools, I absolutely would have screwed them up at 18, but I would have tried. And I think
Me too.
it's really important that you just understand you just got to try. And it's okay to just try and learn. And maybe you do say to the person asking you if you're a good girl or if you go out on the weekends, where you say, "Gosh, I'm not sure that's relevant. Can you help me understand it?" Once it comes out of your mouth, regardless of what happens, you have done it. You have tried, and be proud of yourself for that. That's huge. I would have been proud of myself if I'd been able to get that out of my mouth. So that's kind of all I wanted to say, is that don't feel like you're a failure if you don't hit the home plate every time. This is hard. These are hard things. A lot of the things we talk about on this podcast are really difficult, but they're good. They're really good things. So, yeah, just keep it in your back pocket. It's like a tool belt. It's back there for you whenever you want. That may not be the tool you decide to use, but there are others, and that's the best part about it. So,
I love that.
Yeah, and I think Brynna, on that point, it's practice, right? You practice, so you don't get it right the first
We
time. You
certainly
freeze.
haven't,
No
right,
biggie.
Jules? I mean, it's taken us
Oh,
years.
good Lord.
Years.
Good Lord. Good Lord. Yeah. So you freeze. No biggie. Number one, you can always go back later after you've had time to think about it. Not necessarily in an interview, but if you work with the people, you can go back to that person later and say, you know what? The other day you said something, and in the moment, I didn't know how to respond, but really wasn't comfortable with it. So I want to
yeah,
talk it through because I want to better understand where you were coming from when you made the
yeah,
comment you did. So like you could script it out then. But I think that that's really important. And I think that guilt is a useless
Amen.
emotion, if
Cheers.
you can even call it.
Cheers.
Amen. Cheers. If you can even call it an emotion, but it's useless. All it does is paralyze us. So let that
Mhm.
crap go. And, just do the best you can in the moment and analyze it after the fact to figure out how you can do better in the next moment. And that's the best that we can do. So there's no guilt in wine with HR, none whatsoever. But it is time to get back to the WINE, which often erases the
it's
guilt
true.
entirely. So,
Oh God.
so Britta,
Oh
you still
God.
loving
Yeah,
your
when I was
wine?
panicked about the bottle, boy, I was correct. I am through the glass. We're ready for glass number 2. I've restrained myself because what happens, I don't listen, I am normally a whiskey sipper, okay? So what has happened, and I forget about this with wine, is my face goes red. I turn into a lobster face, and I totally forgot about it. And the lights that I'm using right now, y'all can't see it, but the lights I'm using right now are majestically covering the fact that I have gone full-fledged lobster. But I look like I put the rosé on my face. So, you know, it's great. I'm really pleased with it. Again, this is a Goose Ridge Revelation wine. It's their Rosé 2023. Really great. If you have $20 to spend and you have availability to get to a Benton City, Washington wine, lots of supermarkets in Washington State, Oregon State have them. Pick it up. It's really good and it's budget friendly. We love that.
My wine is treating me very nicely. It is still delightful. I'm shockingly not even halfway through the bottle.
Wow.
I can still taste the ocean. Now I know it's from Spain, but the bottle and everything about it being Mediterranean reminds me of Greece. So I can picture myself off of Samos Island, you know, just enjoying that sea salt air and that just freshness that's in the air. And I can see like the octopi on the clotheslines that they're all drying out to cook, and just all of the fresh Greek food, and it just takes me back there, and I really appreciate that. So this is all the 5-star rating. I really, really like this wine.
I'm very excited.
Go Terima.
Go
Yeah.
gadget
You know
wine.
how much I
Yeah.
love my you know how much I love Spain and hope to someday live there, and obviously love their wines. I'm obsessed, so that makes me very happy, and I will be trying that one ASAP. I have something funny to tell you, Julie. Brynna, you appreciate this as
boy.
well. So as Julie mentioned, I finally decided to hack. Hack is the best way to say it. This bottle that my mother and father so lovingly gave me. It apparently, Daddy Cool, this particular bottle is actually a Brut. It's a sparkling wine from Italy. What?
Oh,
Yes.
Mm. Tantissimo.
Yes, but so we're talking about green apple, citrus, floral, very dry finish. However, it's a little sweeter than we would normally. Yeah.
Oh.
But I'm sorry, even if it is sweet, this sparkliness kind of, I don't care if it is a little sweeter than I would normally want. The sparkly makes up for it. And I know our listeners can't see it, but like the sparkle is insane.
It is a gold bottle. Yeah,
It's insane.
insane.
It is. It's insane. It's a
Yeah,
gold
it is.
glittery bottle.
Glittery bottle.
I
So
mean,
for those of you who do
yeah.
like special, like sweeter kind of champagnes or sparkling wines, I think this would be a definite plus for you. Now apparently, and I promise you my parents did not know this when they bought it, they just bought it because it was sparkly, but Daddy Cool, and I'm sure some of our listeners know this and they're gonna laugh at me and us for not knowing, is actually some sort of a record label. So there's like Daddy Cool.
that makes sense.
Daddy Cool Records.
That makes sense.
So I just want to say, like, I have no idea what kind of records they produce or anything like that, but there you go. So I found it open,
All
and
right.
thank you, Mama and Daddy, for the beautiful gift of wine for the birthday. So there you go. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, on that note, we are going to end this episode. Brynna, thank you so much for being on our
I
actual on the
know.
show itself versus just behind the scenes. I think it was great to hear your perspective, and I think this was I thank you for the idea because I think this was a really important episode for everybody out there because we've probably all been through this at some point, and if you haven't
Oh,
yet,
good.
just wait. Yeah, right. So we love you guys. We will see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.